word to wise. Grass only greener when it's fertilized. Gave them truth in these songs, they prefer to lies. Destiny beautiful, adrift in her purple lies. You can't see me, you Stevie. Wondering how I reach more evolutions than Evie and make it look easy.
What is up, Earth's mightiest subscribers? It is your boy Ernie, the Blerd Without Fear. Welcome back to the channel. I have the special guest with me today who we've had on the channel before. We talked about Weapon X-Men. We've talked about issue 1. We've talked about issue 2, 3, 4. Is at the time that you guys see this, it's gonna be on the shelves. So yeah, and you guys are probably already reading it because I know y'all are good like that. But I have special guest Joe Casey, the co-creator of Ben 10 and Generator Rex, the writer of books that you have likely read. He has written X-Men, he has written Cable, he has written Kneel Before Zod. You can go pick these up on the shelves right now. You can go pick up books like Blood Squad 7. You can also pick up the Space Quest book over at Dynamite. Like, just tons of amazing books. This guy's got amazing books. He's also a writer of, Weapon X-Men that we're gonna be talking about. Joe, how you doing?
Good, man. Good to be here. Four issues deep already.
Man, I love it because really in this issue especially, kind of some of the shenanigans I was really kind of excited to see happen with the type of makeup that we have in this team. You really kind of get to see it in this issue, the dysfunction, but also how like it's to a point now where all the characters are kind of just like, we're used to each other a little bit. We kind of know, Wolverine's not getting as angry, at Deadpool for being Deadpool. Cable and Chamber getting to bond and whatnot. Man, dude, this first, I just want to say this issue is fantastic. Lots of nice callbacks to some stuff that I was not expecting you to pull back from. Let's address the elephant in the room, or the kaiju-sized elephant in the room. Red Ronin, had been around for a while, but there's a very specific time that you kind of pulled from with Red Ronin. It was like right before probably what is considered one of the most infamous issues of Avengers that was ever committed to page, but kind of like the late 190s area, which is probably, I think it was the first time Red Ronin was in anything outside of a Godzilla comic.
That's right.
What inspired you to pull from the places that you pulled from with Red Ronin?
Well, I mean, obviously I'm a big Avengers fan from when I was a kid, and those issues, that run was like my sweet spot at 8, 9 years old. So I've used Red Ronin before in the Zodiac miniseries that I did with Nathan Fox like 15 years ago. But this was, to me, the real deal because it was an actual sequel to that Avengers story with a sort of a family connection there. And I don't know. I mean, is it continuity porn? Yes, totally. But I love that shit.
That's not a dirty word, okay? That's not a dirty word. I like it.
So either. I don't think so either. If I can't indulge my my obscure Marvel Comics passions in a Weapon X-Men comic, then what am I doing here? Right?
Something that I've often tried to impress upon people, when you're talking about a comic series that's been running for as long as a book like Avengers has, anytime you have someone that is coming on, I don't care who it is, when you have someone come on who is writing a book of that magnitude, and really when we're talking about like Marvel, that could be almost any book, not just Avengers. A lot of the times I always tell people, like, you can always kind of get like every person's story is usually a snapshot of what they love most about the book that that they're writing, or the things that stuck out to them. So it's one of those things. I always love it because every time I have read one of your issues of Weapon X-Men, I've ended up like digging back into into the Marvel Unlimited. And I'm like, that was actually why I even thought about it when I did. I was like, when the little note in there was like, oh yeah, this is from Avengers, 198, 199. And I was like, when I saw that, I was like, oh my God, I've never paid much attention to those issues like right before, because I always ended up focusing more on the craziness with Avengers 200. But like, yeah, when I went back, I was like, oh wow, I was like, yeah, Red Ronin was like literally the last thing the Avengers dealt with before you got to that landmark issue. So like I started digging back into that. I started digging back into a lot of your old Cable run because of the the secret base that pops up in this issue. Like there's always like something that makes me kind of dig back into like older stories, just to kind of be like, oh yeah, that was a really cool thing that I was like, man, I forgot all about this. Once again, you'd already kind of said you had already used Red Ronin before, but like I was curious to know, because of the timing right now, because it was something I noticed over the weekend, was that a lot of like popular things from around that time frame, they're all kind of hitting their anniversaries and whatnot. And I think, was it last year was like the anniversary of Godzilla, and of course Red Ronin, that's kind of where Red Ronin got started. I was wondering if that played any into you're including Red Ronin into this.
Let me tell you, Ernie, I have this very, my superpower is to predict what's coming down the pipe. Because when I came up with this story, when I had the notion to do this story, I had no clue that Marvel was going to go balls deep into Godzilla. Danger, danger, danger. Around the same time. No idea whatsoever. Not a goddamn clue. I just wanted to tell this story. I just wanted to sequelize that Avengers story. So it just so happened the timing lined up, and it was insane. And it's not the first time that's ever happened. Mm-hmm. I'm sure it won't be the last time. Next issue of the Weapon X-Men will be another coincidental, sort of story, considering other things that Marvel's doing. But it's just how my brain works, I guess. I don't know. It's weird.
Joe Casey is a mutant confirmed, is basically what you're saying.
Precog at the highest order. Yeah. When it comes to useless information, come to me. I'll tell you about it first.
Well, it was really cool though, because like right now Godzilla's kind of everywhere right now. Like Godzilla's literally like taking over in comics right now. A rising tide lifts all ships, I believe. So like just the idea that kind of seeing a lot of that stuff, and then Red Ronin kind of like sneaking back into into the conversation again. I was like, man, it's like such a good timing. I was like, I don't think you could have planned that better if you tried, but you didn't plan it at all. So just
I didn't try. I just want to tell this story, and it just so happened. I mean, in fact, when we were first talking about it, I first told the editor about wanting to do it, there was a question mark of whether or not we could use Red Ronin at all, whether or not the license was still in flux, whether or not Marvel was going to get to do these Godzilla crossovers was still in play. So there was a possibility that I was going to have to kind of alter the story and sort of use Red Ronin, but not call him Red Ronin, and do a little, continuity two-step, which I was prepared to do, because I was more interested in the backstory of the Cowan family and the people the former pilot of Red Ronin who'd stolen him in the Avengers story, and sequelizing that story more than anything else. But then sort of at the last minute, just as I turned in about to turn in the script for number 4, I got the word, oh no, we can use Red Ronin, no problem. I was like, all right, find, replace, back to school again. It was great. I'm proud that we got to use them.
Well, it's something else that you have a knack for. As I said earlier, every time I've read an issue, I've gone back into the tomes of Marvel yesteryear to like try and like figure out like, hey, where's this, like, oh, was this something that I had read before? Is this something I never had encountered before? And like honestly, so Dr. Cowan, who pops up in this issue, as well as being tied to that original story, like that was honestly, it was something I hadn't even thought of. When I saw the name Cowan even come up, it just never even like didn't even like ding for me until until a little later on, and I was like, oh wait, and I was like, oh okay, there it is. So like you actually managed to give a character that like I feel, I'm actually shocked never comes back up again. Like literally the last time we saw this character was like, decades ago.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, it's like you just dust that character off. It's like, okay, yeah, man, get back out there.
Well, it's just my neuroses to take one line of dialogue
Mhm.
from the end of Avengers 199 where Nick Fury says, the guy's crazy. We're gonna put him in an institution as opposed to go to prison.
Mhm.
I've kept that in my head, for 40 years, 45 years, that there's a way, if he's just, locked up in Bellevue somewhere, if he's just in a straitjacket, that opens up a kind of story that is different than, well, if he just went to jail and got,
Yeah.
Rikers for however long, this had a little more pathos to it, a little more of the family connection, and him wanting to bust his older brother out of confinement in a mental hospital. It kind of there was a little more to it for me. But again, that's my neuroses. That one throwaway line of dialogue was the seed of the whole story.
Well, just the fact you were able to build like as much as you did off of that, and at the same time, like raise the cachet of Bellevue Hospital to where it is an even better. It is better at holding criminals than any other facility in the, because I went and looked. I actually went and looked. I was like, man, this guy's not showing up in anything else. And it's like, wow, this dude has been in. He has been gone. He has been disappeared. Since that issue.
Yeah, but we talked this before that if you look at it from the sliding timeline of continuity that Marvel has to deal with, it's been a couple of years. That's fairly reasonable.
That's fair. That's fair.
Tied up in a straight jacket, in the white room somewhere. That's fine.
Well, it's like I don't know. It's one of those things. Like, it's just so wild to think about. But like, I will definitely say this. Something that I really dug about this issue was there's like an earlier conversation that's being had where Cable and Chamber getting to have a little back and forth. And considering that these are both characters that you have already kind of like had a really big hand in fleshing out on like different occasions. Like, well, how did it feel to kind of take these two characters and kind of like, because what it's kind of felt like Cable's kind of taking him under his wing.
Yeah, it was a thing where you've got one character that, because he's a time traveler, has a wider perspective on life, I guess you could say. Mm-hmm. And then you've got this other character who has tried and failed to fit in any number of X-Men teams. I mean, it's this whole speech about it. I was with the X-Men. I was with the Generation X. I was, I've tried and failed a couple of times. I don't belong anywhere. Why, it gave him some angst that he hadn't had before. Because that's sort of what you got to do with these long-running characters. You got to look at where they've been, and sort of try to apply some emotional logic to it. I mean, here's a guy that has tried to fit in and just it never worked out. And you can look at it from a lot of reasons why it didn't work out. Sometimes it's a story reason, and sometimes it's just a publishing reason. I mean, I think I thought he fit in well with the X-Men, obviously, because I put him there. Once I was gone from that title, he didn't last much longer because the next writer didn't have the interest in him that I had. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't necessarily a story reason. It was a sort of a behind-the-scenes reason. But if you can look at those breadcrumbs and make a story out of that, make a backstory out of that. So that's what I did, and so those two together, it made sense. One has the wider perspective, and one is realizing that his here and now never works out. Mm-hmm. So it was a good juxtaposition of characterization there, I thought.
I'm really hoping that somebody comes along and does something with Chamber, because a lot of people like talk about character assassination, like in terms of this person wrote this character, they didn't write him the way they're supposed to be.
They ruined him.
You single-handedly ruined 30 years of storytelling somehow, which I think is virtually impossible. But like, but I always feel like character assassination also comes in a different form, just in terms of just not using a character, like
Yeah,
just kind of
yeah.
you're putting the character to bed, just you're putting the black bag over their head and then dragging them off into the black SUV and driving them off into the night. And that's what I always feel like happens to Chamber. I feel like, and I think that's actually, and why I feel like it's such character assassination is because, like, I think I've told you before, I always felt like, yeah, Chamber's a character I always thought looked cool, and like whenever he gets used, I think he is cool, but like it's so hard to like root for the character when I do see him, because it rarely does anyone actually like seem to genuinely care. So like you're kind of setting Chamber up in this, and it's like, man, dude, this is really nice. Like, what's going on right here? He's facing his whether it's insecurities or just being apprehensive about being tied to anything. It's like you're setting this guy up for like some fantastic storytelling, and it's like it terrifies me, because I'm like, man, somebody else is gonna come along and just say, nah, he can go on off over here. Like, is what I'm afraid of.
I mean, listen, that's just how it goes sometimes. You know, I mean, you can't. I mean, I just, I hope hopefully anyone who reads like this issue in particular, because I know what you mean about that scene. It kind of presents Chamber's stakes, his emotional stakes, like it puts them out right out front. So I hope anybody that reads this and is a fan of that character feels that that's the character they know. You know, it's familiar. It's like seeing an old friend again. You know, that's it's kind of the best you can hope for with these guys.
Yeah. Well, I'll just say this for Chamber, and then I'll leave it at that. Tom, I don't know if you're listening, but Tom, you've greenlit a lot of series. We've got 2 Wolverine series. We had a Mystique mini. We got Magic and Psylocke running around with books. Storm's got a book. Man, give Chamber a book, okay? Give Chamber a book. Let Joe write it, okay? That's all I'm asking. I'm just putting that out there.
I appreciate that, Ernie, but I will say this though. I'm not sure. I mean, look, I mean, yeah, you could if you can get your hooks into a character, you can tell any kind of story with that character. But I would say, in my opinion, and this goes for a couple of members of Weapon X-Men, that they work better in a team dynamic. They need to bounce off of other characters to distinguish themselves.
I see. Yeah, that you know what, honestly, it does make sense, because even characters that are as popular as Wolverine and Deadpool, while I enjoy them as characters on like solo titles, I do usually find them more interesting, or at least I feel I'm better able to jive with their characters when they have someone else to kind of play off of. So I mean that does actually make a lot of sense.
I mean, some people like that. They're a really iconic, important character in the Marvel universe. In particular, the Human Torch. I don't think could hold up in a solo series for very long. He works better in that anti-sport dynamic. The Vision as a solo character, no thank you. I don't care, about his family or anything like that. Works best when he's interacting with the other Avengers.
Yes.
That's just my opinion, but I think history has kind of bore that out to some degree.
It's so, like if you do like a little deviation for a little while, like I don't mind. Like, if you want to do like a little small, like little one-off thing, I'm perfectly okay with that. I don't think anyone needs 50 issues of I don't think anyone needs to be celebrating 50 issues of Vision. Just not in a short span of time, at least.
Right.
Like I don't want to see a Vision bi-weekly series. I'll put it like that. Or bi-monthly or whatever.
But that's sort of the special dynamic of a team book, that there are characters that exist that help make that team what it is, and you don't want to take that piece out and try to see them on their own, because it's they perform a dramatic function that you don't want to mess with if you can help it. And it's very tempting to take a Wolverine, for instance, and give him his solo series, and it's clearly worked. Me personally, I prefer Wolverine in the X-Men. I've never connected to Wolverine as a solo character. I've written solo books with Wolverine in it, but for me, him being part of the team dynamic is what makes him special and what makes the X-Men special.
Right. Well, and I think it actually a testament to what you're talking about is that when I actually go back and think about a lot of the Wolverine books I've read over the years, many of them he's not by himself. Like, I mean, it's a
Yeah.
solo. Like clearly the title of the book is Wolverine, but like, there's always like guest stars, and not just like like a cameo. Like, no, these characters are like hanging around and being like a fixture. In like even right now, I think in the current Wolverine book, Wolverine has had like Nightcrawler jumping in and out of issues here and there. He had other characters pop up that were like hanging around. Laura Kinney was hanging around, so like he had someone to play off there. Yeah, honestly, without even really, I never really put a whole heap of a lot of thought into it before. But yeah, no, you're 100%. You're 100% right.
I'll give you another example. This goes back, and it's very lauded and celebrated, so I'm not throwing shade on it, but the first Wolverine miniseries, the Claremont Frank Miller Wolverine miniseries, great series. I mean, I'm not taking anything away from that, but the sequel to that series that happened in X-Men, when the X-Men go to Japan for his wedding, it's Paul Smith drawing it, and it's basically a sequel to this miniseries or continuation of the miniseries. Way better, in my opinion. Way better story, way better Wolverine story, because the other X-Men are around him to bounce off of. I mean, it's just, again, I don't know how hot a take that is, but it's how I feel.
I mean, I don't think you're wrong either, because I mean, yeah, there's man, I'm gonna get canceled for this. I always say that one of my favorite characters in the Marvel universe is Blade.
Sure.
But I can count on one hand and save a few fingers how many times Blade has had a good solo comic.
Yeah.
And that the times that he actually was, and I'm not even counting, like, I don't even want to count Tomb of Dracula either, because that was kind of really not just his book, but like, it was just as much Dracula's book as it was his. But like, whenever I go back and like read like older Blade solo titles, I was like, oh man, dude, this is weak. This is, man, I don't know about this one. Every now and again you get a good one, but like more often than not, I've come to find that the good ones are very few and far between. And when they are good, it's because someone else is in there with him.
Yeah, it takes great restraint not to have something work in a team dynamic and think, wow, we could spin that off and make some more money. Let's do it. What are we waiting for? But if you're taking something away from the character in order to do it, yeah, you make money, but I think you're doing more long-term damage than you want to do. But again, that's just me.
I distinctly remember a specific time in the 90s where every X-Man had a solo title for a very short stint of time. It wasn't good. There's a reason why there's a reason why people read the X-Men. There's a very distinct reason. Taking all those characters and giving them solo books, not wise. Something that we had talked about before, in regards to him, and where he's trying to, what he's trying to accomplish is, it kind of comes back up this issue. There's a name that comes up, Trevor Fitzroy, and for those that don't know, Trevor Fitzroy is one of those characters that I always giggle sometimes when I see him, because he's probably, I won't say he's the most bizarre character, but he's one of those characters that, like, whenever I hear his name, it just, I always am transported back to a very specific era of my time reading X-Men back in the 90s, all around the time that, like, when Bishop is kind of first showing up on the scene. And what I love about it is we've talked about the fact that when they were on Latveria, Thunderbird, it was becoming increasingly obvious with every issue that he was trying to get back to something. He was trying to figure out some kind of means of time travel to get back to somewhere. When you bring up Trevor Fitzroy into the equation, what I really liked about this is that Trevor Fitzroy is time traveling is his stock and trade. But what I really liked here, and I don't know if some people will catch this, is that the fact that Thunderbird's looking into a guy like that almost kind of lets you know a certain level of desperation, because for those who may or may not be aware, Trevor Fitzroy's whole power works off of siphoning life forces. So the question is like where Thunderbird is at mentally. emotionally by this point. Like it kind of lets you know that whatever he's trying to do, he's very desperate. And obviously we're going to address that stuff in the next issue. But I was wanting to know was for bringing in like a character like Trevor Fitzroy, who usually is like, I don't want to call him a mustache twirling villain because he's a little more nuanced than that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think to me, I mean, you covered the X-Men comics, and you know that he'd been used fairly recently in X-Men.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I didn't know that when I came up with this idea, and I had to be told, "Oh no, he's going to be in X-Men." And I was like, "Oh, okay." So I got with Jen, and I emailed back and forth a couple times, and he told me where he was going to be and what he how he saw him in his. Because I wasn't wanted to take away from his story that he wanted to tell, and I was under the impression that he was going to be kind of more involved in the X-Men title than he has been, as it turns out. But the thing about Trevor Fitzroy that was interesting to me, and it's one of those things that's like these cosmic things that work out so well, is that, and what I hope that people who read this issue and they see his name evoked, and again, this is continuity porn of the highest order, but his power is that he can create these portals that can send you in through time. But the hiccup or the trick is they only go one way. They're not two-way time portals. You can't jump into one and then jump back from wherever you are back to the present. These are one-way trips, which hopefully people who read this and kind of go, oh, well, so if Thunderbird is wanting a one-way trip somewhere, then this must be something. This is more than just some cross-time caper.
This isn't Avengers and This isn't Avengers Endgame. He's not coming back.
Right? Exactly. So I wanted to just evoking that name. I wanted sort of those keen-eyed readers to be like, "Oh shit, this is not he's really wants to go somewhere and has no intention of coming back." So then, what are we talking about here? Well, you find out in the next issue what we're talking about. But it's those little moments of it's a cliffhanger in its own way. If you know about the character, because if you know about Trevor Fitzroy, then the whole can of worms opens up in your mind of like, oh shit, one-way portals, how's he going to use it, where is he going, it's all that stuff is meant to be evoked just from mentioning the guy's name.
That's what it was for me when I saw the name Trevor Fitzroy come up. I immediately there was a very audible response from me. Because it's like that also I like when characters that don't really get talked about a lot pop up, just because I think the witness protection program is the most overused program in comic book storytelling between both Marvel and DC. So whenever I can see a character come out of WITSEC and and do something for a little bit, I get excited. When I read that line that Trevor's been kicking up dirt over on Cyclops' side of things, with the X-Men, he showed up like one time and he hasn't been back since. I think like it's been hinted that he's going to be back. Like there's been some, I guess, kind of teases that I think one of the next issues or two, he's going to pop back up. But like, he hasn't been as much of a force over on the X-Men side of things. So I was wondering like how much fun, or I guess how much fun stuff is Jed going to let you get to do with Trevor? Not to
drop too many spoilers, but I will say this: Trevor Fitzroy performs a function in the story, but he's not the story. I needed the apparatus to tell the story I wanted to tell. So that's kind of how he shows up in the story. He's not the antagonist of next issue. I can feel that.
Something else that came up, and it was actually something we had talked about before. There was a line you were teasing when we talked about the previous issue when you were talking about this one in regards to Wolverine. And it was kind of funny because when it came up, like I said before, every time I read one of these, I end up like just kind of digging back, and looking back at various older issues of stuff. And there's a part where you kind of tease, Wolverine's gonna go one-on-one with Red Ronin, but like he's gonna make a quip about how this is he's used to fighting giant killer robots. But then I went back and looked, and I was like, it's kind of like a little bit of a kind of a double entendre, because technically, my first thought was Sentinels, but then I went back and looked and realized, I was like, he's fought him before, but I don't know if he remembers it. Like, just because at the time, It was when he was like Bone Claw Wolverine. It was like when they had lost his adamantium, he had the whole bandana thing and was like all rabid and everything.
I mean, I will say, just to address that point, I mean, I you kind of hit the nail on the head. I felt like that was an episode in his life that he might not have been completely, still cognizant of. And also, I'm into continuity porn as much as the next guy, but there are limits.
Right.
And to reference sort of everything that you could reference, it becomes a footnote comic as opposed to a story. And so that was because I was aware of that too. And I was like, I'm just gonna kind of just let that lie and not reference it, and hopefully I get away with it. And I almost did. Damn you, Ernie.
I will totally cop to being Fred from Scooby-Doo. But I thought it was cool though, because I don't expect everything to, I guess, have like a spotlight shown upon it. But I actually thought it made sense because, like, I mean, when Wolverine goes in for the fight, he doesn't act surprised by anything that he's seen. He engages Red Ronin, as if he has fought him before. Like he doesn't seem surprised by any of the stuff that's going on. He knows, like, matter of fact, I think when we actually see him dive in, he immediately knows right where to strike. I thought it was neat that it was handled the way that it was handled, because I mean, I don't think it actually needed any like, well, last time kiddies, or anything like that. It didn't need any of that, but I just think it's so cool just in the sense that it makes you kind of go back and look at certain like maybe go back and look at certain comics and then like kind of come back to this one and kind of see it in like a whole new light. Like when I was reading it, I went back, I started digging through like I said, some of your Cable run, and was like, oh man, I can't remember the issue where I first started seeing the Steel base coming up, or when you were writing Cable, Wakanda comes up, and the whole like the old school Jack Kirby Steel Jungle comes up, stuff like that. Like it's always nice little touches and flourishes. Man, just I'll say this for kind of like getting to do a lot of your own thing on this. And not really having to like bend too much with a lot of like, I guess like was like the greater like continuity that's going on right now with a lot of the X-Men stuff. I actually got really excited when when you kind of get back to the end of this and kind of finding out where they have to go next. And like everybody's like, Cable is kind of stepping in and being like the even though I guess Wolverine's just as much an elder statesman in all this, but like he's kind of being like, hey, look, this is the thing we got to do. This is what's going to happen. And yeah, I don't know. I love to see it. I absolutely love to see it.
It's my favorite thing about it is the team dynamic. The characterization. I mean, I've said this many times to you before, but that's, to me, for writing team books, that's what it's all about. Getting these characters together and having them interact with each other and their personalities bounce off each other. And that, to me, that makes them real, which is why I always like team books over solo titles, because if you're writing a solo title, you're as far removed from the character as the reader is as when you're writing it, because if they're on their own, they're just doing their thing. I mean, if you want to get into an endless thought balloon thing, you could do that, but I've never really done that too much because it just has never been my authorial voice to do the endless narrative captions or the thought balloons where they're pontificating endlessly about their lives. The only way you really get to know people is to talk to them. In life, that's how it is. So to have these characters talking to each other, that's how I get to know them. That's how readers get to know them. And that's how, so that's, to me, it's my favorite part of the gig is getting these guys talking to each other. So if you ask me what my favorite pages are in this issue, my favorite sequence is really the last 2 pages where all of them go back to Cable's safe house. All talking about stuff, and and then they find out Thunderbird's gone, and they figure out quickly where he's gone. And I mean, that's cool dynamics to me. That's seeing them interact, and especially at the beginning, where they're just arriving and they're just kind of shooting the shit with each other to some degree. That's where you really get a sense of who these guys are. I love that.
It made my day just because by the time you get to the end of it all, Deadpool, Wolverine, Chamber, Cable, they're all just kind of doing their thing. It's just like, I don't know, just seeing them all kind of firing back and forth, because it really actually showed that while there may be like a little bit of time that might have passed between like the first mission and the last mission, it's like, yeah, it's like there's still some growing pains, but you could tell like they're a lot closer, or at least more friendly with each other than what they were kind of, going into it. And I thought that, like I said, I loved it. I absolutely love that.
I kind of love it too, Ernie. I gotta admit.
We got Weapon X-Men number 5 coming up, as we kind of already stated. Like, this is going to be them trying to catch up with Thunderbird. I don't want to really give away, because we kind of talked a little bit about some of the stuff that we can kind of expect. Is there anything you wanted to kind of give any of the viewers watching this who, I don't want to say like on the fence, but like people who like are kind of curious or don't know what they can expect?
Yeah.
Is there anything you would give them
I
for
would,
issue number 5?
well, I would say about issue 4 and 5 is that it's, I think for me personally, when you're building a series or you're writing a series, there are stories that you kind of not have to do, but are necessary to do to set things up or line things up in the way that you want, arranging the deck chairs, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And then there are those issues and those stories where everything is in place and you can just have fun with the characters, and that's what 4 and 5 are to me. They're what Marvel comics are to me.
Mm-hmm.
My version of a Marvel comic book is Weapon X-Men 4 and 5 in different ways. But I mean, issue 4, Red Ronin emerges and rampages across Hell's Kitchen, and Weapon X-Men has to stop them. That's, in a way, that's for comic books, that's fairly low stakes.
Mm-hmm.
The universe isn't at stake. It's not, nobody dies. No, it's kind of like a sort of mid-level adventure story. Typical of comic books. The majority of comic books when we were growing up would tell stories like this, and they seem fewer and farther between at Marvel and DC now, just from what I've seen.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if they're what that says about me, whether I'm out of fashion or whether or not this type of story is out of fashion. But it was truly a joy to write these 2 issues for that reason. I feel like that enthusiasm that I have, and the Cross had drawing it too, comes out in the comic. Readers will get a sense of that. So, I realize I'm realistic about things, which works in my favor in the case of these 2 issues. There's no kids out there reading comics in any great degree. The readers of these comics are older. Whether or not they're as old as I am is probably debatable, but they're probably old enough to remember this type of Marvel comic being a little more of a regular thing. So if that's what you're looking for and that's what you're missing, then both of these issues are just right in your wheelhouse, I think, because as a writer, they were in mine. This was like, put it this way, the 10-year-old me would have loved that I was doing these stories now, because it's kind of, if I was going to write Marvel comics, these are the comics I'd want to write. So, for that reason alone, I would hope people check it out, because I feel like there's maybe other readers that maybe feel that way, that feel like there's a style of Marvel comic that's not as prevalent now, is not as normal, that you don't get it as often. And that's what these are. For better or worse, that's what these are.
Well, I love it, so I'm here for it. Weapon X number 4, go check that out. Duh. But did you have anything else you wanted to plug while you were here?
No, I mean, you said it all at the top. I mean, well, aside from Space Quest and Blood Squad 7, I will say this about Blood Squad 7. The 3rd story arc begins in June, and going into it, I thought I was done referencing the past, because I'd run through all the flashbacks that actually happened in the old Image comics from the 90s. But there's one last piece of old continuity that demanded to be addressed, and I don't want to say fixed, but it's, as it turns out, I'm going after a very sacred cow.
Ooh.
That I had no idea I would be doing. It wasn't part of the original plan, but as this 3rd story arc developed, it sort of bubbled up to the surface. And let's just say I'm taking on and challenging the work of one of the comics' greatest writers, and showing how even the masters can have an off day.
Oh, okay.
So that's coming up in Blood Squad 7. And the only other thing I would plug, we talked about my Substack. Twice a week, free for all. That's been a lot of fun. There's been a lot of good stuff on there lately. I mean, I went on a whole rant about how we don't have enough readers and why we don't have enough readers and what's going on that got us there. I take myself and guys of my generation to task. It's the discourse is getting good there.
I've thoroughly enjoyed it myself. because I think that you address these issues in such a way that I feel, I guess, what's the best way to put it? They're firm but fair. Like there's no undue criticisms. There's no like gratuitous finger wagging. It's like nah. It's like this is literally, it is what it is. This isn't like up for debate. It's like this is what it is.
Despite my reputation in certain circles, I have no hate in my heart.
Yeah.
I have no hate in my heart. I love this business. I love the medium. I love comic books, but sometimes you got to call it like you see it. You know?
Yeah. Hey, balls and strikes. I mean,
yeah. There's no way out except through it. You know, we can't go backwards. You can only go forward. And sometimes going forwards can be very painful when you have to face up to the mistakes that we've made. And the mistakes that we made, you can only see them in hindsight. You don't know you're making mistakes when you're making them. And kind of to take it back to Weapon X-Men, as I said in the Substack, I kind of do this whole rant on what I call nostalgia comics. I got to tell you, are a lot of fun to do. I love them. I don't know if I'm doing anybody any favors in pushing the things forward by loving them as much as I do. So I am part of the problem. I'll admit it. I am part of the problem. But until somebody puts me in charge of something, I'm going to get my kicks where I can get them. You know what I mean?
No. Like I said, I can't even fault you for that. Because at the end of the day, all you could do is the job that you're paid to do, you know, and have fun doing it. And just based on conversations I've had with other writers, I mean, yeah, you got to take the fun where you can get it. So, I mean, yeah, because if you don't do it, I mean, somebody else is probably going to do it. At the end of the day, the machine is going to do what the machine wants to do.
And if you can have the right mindset, I will say that the ratio of fun versus not fun, it's 98% fun.
Yeah.
And 2% frustrating, which, you know, in any job, pretty good. That's pretty good.
I was gonna say, I've worked a lot of stressful jobs that were not even, I worked jobs that have not even been 10% fun.
Yeah.
So
don't lie. Yeah.
So yeah, I think you know what? I think it's gonna be okay. I think it's gonna be fine. Thank you so much for just for one, being a straight shooter and just telling it like it is, and also telling us some really good stories. Not just with obviously not just with Weapon X-Men, but also with all the other stuff you're doing. I'm gonna say it again. Go check out Space Quest. Go check out Blood Squad 7. If you haven't done so already, go check out Kneel Before Zod. I trust me, you'll get a kick out of it. But also make sure that you're picking up Weapon X-Men #4. And also #5. Go get all of it. But
when we're back for #5, Ernie, we're gonna have a lot to unpack. I promise you.
Oh, so there you go. See, just go get it. Just go get it, y'all. Y'all know what you got to do. Okay, go do it.